There are days I'm a recovering perfectionist, and then there are days that I am a struggling perfectionist, and then there are days that I ate all the fries. That's just my journey.
Chaos is all around us. It's in our minds, it's in our spaces.
Melissa is a hopeful who simplifies organizing.
Angel is a curious idealist who clarifies complexities.
Together, we take on the mental overwhelm and cluttered spaces to spark conversations that lead to clearing chaos.
So, welcome back to another episode of Clearing Chaos.
Okay, that was the best one yet.
This is what happens when I have coffee in the afternoon. Be like, let's do it. Let's just hit record and see what happens.
When you say
Coffee? Coffee? Yeah. I don't even know. Like, there are random words that sound funny, and then there are random words I can't say. I just got to let some of that go.
Can't have all the words be perfect.
Right. But I want to. Those are the struggle days. Perfectionism is hard. Is that what we're tackling today?
I think so.
What sparked you out? Other than our last conversation that we were like, we're going to go down that roundabout hole of perfectionism.
Yeah, I think that's perfectionism and procrastination. I think were two things that we were talking about. Going deeper on.
Are these things you struggle with?
Procrastination, yes. Which I guess lends itself to how I define perfection.
You tell.
So let me take you back.
Coming in real close for this one.
Let me take you back a few years. No, when I used to manage a team, and I was doing an interview for this girl, and she was just telling me about her journey and these challenges that she had went through. She was in recovery. She had gotten to a really bad place, but was on a much better road, clean and sober for 1.5 years at that point. I think that's how long it was. And she told me that her mantra was progress, not perfection. And the way that she looked at perfection, the way that she talked about it in the context of her own growth and development, it was like this magical, unachievable thing that she'd never be good enough to reach. And it made me sad. Because when I looked at her and I looked at everything she had been through, and I mean, I've seen people go down that path that don't ever have the strength and the courage that it takes to pull yourself out of that world and get yourself back on a good path. And she had done the work, and she was like, in that moment, she was the most perfect version of who she could possibly be in my mind, you know? And so I think part of the problem with perfectionism is that image that we create in our minds of what perfect is supposed to be, which goes back to our last episode on how things should be.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's accurate. You know, when you talk about like technical definitions of things, I looked up perfection. I went down the rabbit hole. I looked up perfection. Perfection means without flaws. And when you look up the word flaws, it says flaws are basically imperfections. And then when you look up imperfections, it says not perfect, which takes you right back around to, well, what the hell does perfect even mean? And I think perfect is really just how, like, we define it for different things in different contexts, right? Like, you can have you think about like cooking, a flawless egg, an egg that's cooked to perfection. And there's a common definition for certain things that are perfect. But we take those things that have a common definition, and then we apply that word in ways that there really is no official definition, like the perfect life.
Yeah, it's not a thing.
It's not, but because of things in the media and in, social media, and, we create these versions of what we think it's supposed to be or what it should be based off of movies and TV shows, and maybe it's, images that our parents created in their minds of the life that they wanted for us. But none of it's real. It doesn't have to be your happy life, your best life can be what you decide it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Your perfect can look completely different than someone else's. Yep. And we're done. No.
Well, and so the conclusion that all of that led me through as I went down that rabbit hole, the conclusion that I came to is that as long as I am making progress toward being a better version of myself each day, trying to be better me today than I was yesterday, better tomorrow than I am today, then I am as perfect as I can be. And so I define progress as perfection.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell my community, all my hopefuls know it's a journey. It's a hopeful journey. Because regardless of, what your Pinterest board thing or what the fat is on what you're going to eat, or even, I mean this in the nicest way possible, what your mothers think are best may not suit that part of your journey. That's not the chapter I'm in. So I'm sorry that the perfect image that you have in your head does not define my perfect journey. I work with clients all the time on that. And they're like, well, it should look like this. And perfect. Okay. But is that suiting to you? Because what looks perfect in my house won't look perfect in yours. And the perfect cookie for you is not going to be the right one for me. And so that's
a good analogy. Let's go with the cookies. Yeah.
No, we were around food last time. Not that we have a food problem. But you know what I mean? Like, I think we get stuck in searching for it instead of living through it. I was blessed to share space with the guys from More in Common, and they'd said, okay, define the perfect mom. And I was like, it's not a thing. And it's funny because my son heard that and he was like, did they ask you what perfect is, mommy? I was like, yeah, but he was like, why? That's not a thing. I'm like, I'm a perfect mom at this moment, right? Like, for the fact of a preteen to know that perfection looks differently, that's part of my perfect journey, is I'm doing him the service to know it's not going to look the same for me and you. And that's okay.
I love that. I have this perfect vision in my head of my son working for NASA one day. But it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen.
No.
I mean, if he decides that is the path for him that he wants to take, then I wholeheartedly believe that that's the path he'll take. But just because that's the path that I'm thinking of doesn't mean that that's what will happen. He'll have to decide for himself.
Having kids where we are now in life is why we can have these kind of conversations, because you and I share that vibration of, perfect's not a thing. I'm in a circle box, you're in a square box, and we're teaching our kids to have the conversations and to not strive for the perfection that's in my head, but yours. And I think that's really like a sign on our colored rainbow of why we should do this and why we should have Clearing Chaos. I squirreled there a little bit, but that's okay.
I love it. You squirrel, I rabbit hole.
It's fine.
We're a good pair.
So what do you find your biggest struggles of perfectionism are? Like, is it at work? Is it in creative mode? Is it in parenting or partnership? Or do you see yourself struggling heavier in one aspect of life with perfectionism?
Well, I'm going to say progressivism. I'm going to make up a word. That's
I don't have to say it, do I?
No.
We know how I'm not capable of that.
No, you conquered collaborationship. We're good. Because of the fact that I have that model in my mind, my mental model is that perfection doesn't exist, but there's always another way of doing things, another way of taking things to the next level. I do struggle with when to stop. And that comes to life in a couple different ways. I think it comes to life in a good way with how I support my kid, because he's this little creature who just keeps growing and growing and growing. So it's good that I don't look for a time to stop. That might be an issue when he becomes an adult, but we're not there yet. when I look at like content I'm developing, or like a PowerPoint, like a presentation or a training workshop, whatever it is, I have trouble finding the stopping point because every time I open it up, I can find more ways to edit, to change, to improve, or even different ways to do things that maybe I hadn't thought of before, but oh, well, this could work too. And it may not even be like better than what it was. It may just be a different way of doing it. And so finding that stopping point of like, okay, where some people say done is better than perfect, I know there is no perfect. So it's hard to find any done because there's no line to stop at, you know?
So it's where to accept it as good enough.
And so that's where deadlines come into play.
Accountability buddies are good. Got it.
Accountability buddies are good. Deadlines are good. Knowing that this is the amount of time that I have to complete this. I'm going to do as much as I can to make this as good as I can within this time period. And when I get to the end of that time period, we're done. That's my finishing point.
Do you allow time up to said time period? Do you complete task prior to that time period to go back and struggle with your perfectionism before meeting the deadline, or you just wait until closer to the deadline and then get it done just in time?
That's a good question, and I think it depends on the thing. So if I'm sitting here in my living room and I decide today, within the next 2 hours, I am going to clean something in the kitchen. At some point within the next 2 hours, that's what I'm going to accomplish. I don't know how much I'm going to clean. I don't know. I don't have a set specific amount of things that I'm going to, because again, there's tons of progress. There's tons of stuff that I could do. There's things I could reorganize. There's things that could be cleaned differently. So I'm going to set within the next 2 hours, I'm going to do something to make my kitchen better. And in that situation, I might wait until it's like 15 minutes left, and then I'll follow Melissa's 15-minute rule. I'll set a timer, get up and go get some stuff done, because I'll procrastinate. Whereas if I spent the whole 2 hours, yeah, I probably could have got a lot more done. But my goal was to make some progress within that 2 hours. And so I'll use that last 15 minutes and knock some stuff out. But if it's something that I'm really passionate about, then I may say, all right, in the next 2 hours, I want to, get the first 20 minutes of this presentation locked in. And so I'll spend the whole time working on that first 20 minutes of content.
It depends on how well defined the task is. So a general concept of, I'm going to get something done in that space versus I'm going to get this portion of this specific thing done. So it seems like if you've really narrowed down your task. So let's take organizing, because I could talk about that forever. So you mentioned, okay, within the next 2 hours, I'm going to get something done in my kitchen. So you're like, well, I know Melissa tells me I can just set a 15-minute timer. So that gives me an hour and 45 minutes to stay on my couch because it's super comfortable. And then I'm going to pick the easiest space to tackle and pull out 5 things to declutter today. Or is it, I know I'm going to organize the pantry because tomorrow I want a meal plan. So I'm going to make a list of what we actually have in the pantry and then determine the meals and then plan out the week. And that's going to take more than 15 minutes. So what I'm hearing from your thoughts are like, depending on your enjoyability.
So let's break that down. What were the first 2 steps? Because I think I have an idea of what I might do this afternoon.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, depending on the enjoyability of something, I enjoy organizing. I could do it all day, every day. I know I went to the store today, and on the back of that grocery list, I wrote down the extra meals that I'm going to plan because things were on sale. So then I know I'm going to go into my planner and plan out those meals for the next few weeks based off the sales I found today. So then I know in the pantry this week, I've got to have these available. I need to have the sauce for the spaghetti. I need to have the dressing for the salad with the salmon. I need to have the croutons because he doesn't like it when I make chickpeas instead of croutons. Those are the things I need to know. I need to have in my everyday pantry versus my backstock area.
I have so much to learn from you
every single day. Now, when it comes to, I have to move the burn pile to the fire pit, but it's like hot outside. And I already showered. And I really don't enjoy it because nature. That's when I know the detail I'm supposed to do. I just really don't want to do it. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for getting 5 minutes done instead of doing 2 hours of something I really enjoy doing. We'll totally get your pantry organized if that's what you need. But those are things that I used to struggle for perfection in my pantry until I found something I liked better, and that was productivity. But I still struggle with the font being the right size, or, you know, all the containers being on the same spot on the shelf and all the labels being on the same spot on the container on the shelf. Those are things I recognize I have problems with. So that brings me back to the, when is it good enough? Or when do I keep my journey of progress to replace my want for perfection? This is what happens in Melissa's head.
The version of perfection that you've created in your mind of what that means.
Yes.
For your cabinets.
Yeah. And it's calming for me personally. And I know for part of my community, that outer chaos is just inner clutter. Like, it's just, I cannot find the calm in the chaos. Does that make sense? And
it does. And I'll tell you, so I can be creative in a chaotic environment. I can create, I can build, I can work like crazy. Even with that being part of how I can operate, the feeling that I got once I got these 4 bookshelves up in my hallway and got all this stuff from these different places that things were like stashed and put away where I couldn't find them if I wanted to, or wasn't using them even though I like the things, or like, it brings a sense of happiness to me that I have these 4 bookshelves right here that I can like go over and I can take something down. Like, me and my son have been playing Uno every once in a while now, because like, if he wants to play Uno, he knows he can walk right over there. He can grab the box of Uno cards off of the shelf. He can come over here. We play Uno, and then he'll take them and he'll put them back on the shelf. And like, that feels good.
Damn. I'm going to need to clip that from my business. Thank you very much. But that right there speaks volumes to you were embracing the good enough before, because it was going to take work and effort to actually do it.
Well,
and now you're like, oh.
Well, I don't even think it was the work and the effort that were holding me back. It was not knowing where I was going to put the things, because I have things that I didn't want to throw away that I do use, but maybe not every day or every week. Maybe it's every couple weeks. And so I had this like volume of things, my books, my papers, like references to like different training guides and stuff from over the last few years. And so I had all these things that I just didn't really have a place for. And so from our conversations and just thinking about like, I need to have a place where I can just drop stuff, you know, going back to like the first conversation, I think it was when you were on my podcast that led to all this. We were talking about the pen drawer. I have like a pen drawer that inspired a whole $7,000 course. But that's one space that works well for me, because I pick up a pen, I can just drop it in. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to take a lid off it. And our conversations have kind of like sparked that thought. I mean, like, I need things to be easier to access, and I need to be able to just drop and go. I need to be able to toss something back in a spot and not be extra steps. And so that really helped. And then my husband had the bright idea about the shelves on the walls over here. And I was like, and then we just found a good deal, and it all came together.
That is perfect, because you figured out what fit for you guys, because that would not work for me, but that is perfect part of your journey. That perfect is not a uniform thing.
And so like this right now, where the shelves are at, and even though there's still stuff that's on my desk right now in this moment, like, this is the perfect version of what this will be today for me. It's progress from where I was yesterday or 2 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago. But that doesn't mean I'm done. I've still got more work to do. There's still, it's going to change. It's going to shift. There's going to be things that I move around in the shelves so that I can take it to the next level. And then eventually a day will come when we'll be moving completely out of this place, and eventually we'll own our own home and we can do this all over again. Like,
yeah. But then you'll have the tools you mentioned before. You mentioned I think it was a TED Talks you mentioned before that's there was one about perfectionism or something like that. Was that something that inspired you to realize that you were progressing over striving for perfection?
No, honestly, it was that conversation with that girl that day is what set that, like, it turned that into concrete in my brain.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It was just
anywhere.
It was just the sadness. Like, that was I couldn't believe that she, like, after everything, she had accomplished something that most people would never be able to do. Like, you look at how many people go through that and get stuck in that and don't ever pull themselves out of it. And it felt like there was just this sadness about, like, progress, not perfection. Like, I have to just focus on progress because I'm not good enough for perfection. Like, it was unreal.
No. I'm glad that you had that experience because I think that helps you self-check and appreciate what you've done. I mean, you're powerful and strong and you were on a journey, and acknowledging that. I'm really glad you had that experience, as empathetically hard as it probably was. We need that kind of inspiration in life to keep moving forward.
I am. I'm really glad that I met her and that I got to be a part of that journey, because, like, in that moment, she was just looking for somebody to give her a shot. She just needed somebody to say yes to her. And I did. I gave her the job.
Good job.
And she stayed with me for about I don't remember, like a year or so. And then the job that she moved on, not from quitting or from getting fired or for anything bad. She moved on to a job that she wanted to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so proud of you.
So anyway, I think this combined with the last episode, we just, as people, we need to just stop being so hard on ourselves. Give ourselves credit for the things that we're doing, not worry about stuff that doesn't matter, and focus on what we're doing to make ourselves and the people around us better.
Okay, so we're removing the comparison for perfection. We're removing words like should and should buts. And we are just embracing the progress of the journey we're on. Got it.
Yes.
His angel said so. I'm clear on that, chaos.
Good talk.
Support the show at buymeacoffee.com/clearingchaos